Welcome to Tell Me How Good It Got. Stories of women who defied the rules and ditched the script for what life's supposed to look and came out healthier, happier, hotter, and more themselves. I'm your host, Maha Torelli, Oxford grad and somatic coach. And today I'm so excited to have with me Eloise. Eloise is a somatic coach, trauma-informed facilitator, and independent consultant with 25 years of social work and leadership behind her. After burnout and long COVID forced her to slow down, she turned toward body-based healing and nervous system work, and everything changed. Now, she supports social justice and social change leaders to stay resourced, grounded, and sustainable in the work they care about most. Her approach blends trauma-informed practice, holy vagal theory, internal family systems, and embodied awareness to help leaders not just think differently, but feel differently and lead from a deeper place of presence. Hi, Eloise. Welcome.
Hi, Maho. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for being here. So excited to have you. So I would love to know, Eloise, if I had met you before the COVID and before the burnout, what version of you would I have met?
So you would have met a version that on the outside isn't dissimilar. Somebody who was holding it together, somebody who was present, somebody who was busy. However, on the inside, I was struggling to hold it all together. There was a lot of pressure. I felt like I had to do it all now. I felt like everything was urgent. Everything was a high priority. I was tending to numerous different needs around me, whether they were my professional life or my personal life, and not really tending to my own needs. And certainly I wasn't listening to my body. Yeah.
I can so relate to that, not listening to your body. And how long, were you in this stage of not listening, do you think?
I think when my body was shouting the loudest at me, which was at the start of having long COVID, that was when I realized that something was really not okay. And that forced me to take time out. It forced me to take time out of work, to take time out of everyday life, really. I just didn't really have a choice in it. And with that time out, I realized that I had probably been feeling in a state of burnout for a couple of years. I've been juggling everything and I'd just not really been listening to the signals. And I realized with that hindsight that there had been a number of signals, physical signals that my body had been giving me that I had not really listened to. And I hadn't done anything, it hadn't changed my life. I hadn't done anything differently. So, our bodies are clever beings, and because I didn't listen, it just shut me down with a very full-on bout of long COVID. And even in the darkest time, I always had a glimmer of hope. I always believed and trusted that something good would come out of that time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it has.
I so love that because you had both the signals and the body, your body was speaking, but at the same time it was speaking that on two levels, right? The hope and at the same time that the burnout and those signals. I wonder what were those signals for you? Like how did it show up in your body?
Before I had long COVID, the ones that they
Yeah,
ignored, you mean?
yeah.
So I was regularly getting ill. So clearly my immune system was really, compromised and unwell because I was getting every small virus. I was getting COVID really regularly. And then just with a regular small virus like a cough or a cold, it would wipe me out for, 2 or 3 weeks. And that wasn't how my body had been, throughout my life. It wasn't a regular pattern for me. So yeah, so something, it was different. Something was off. And I knew something was off, but at that point, I didn't choose to listen and make any changes. Yeah, yeah. I felt that my perception at the time was I didn't even have time. So I felt I was so overloaded. I felt I didn't even have time to think about what do I need to do differently. And I think looking back on it, where I was at the time was in a place that I was feeling really stuck. So I was feeling stuck in my professional life. And I think I was feeling stuck in my, in my the cycle of my physical illness, and how that impacted on my emotional well-being as well. I think stuck is the word that best describes it.
What was the exact moment that you were like, this has to change? This is stuckness. What did that look like for you? That exact moment of no.
I took a period of sick leave from my job at the time, which was a really difficult thing for me to do. And, quite, it was a really big deal. And a very good friend of mine was able to just speak really openly and honestly to me and just say, you need to take some time off work. Because even then, I wasn't listening to my body, I wasn't listening to myself. So that was very helpful. It took me some time for my body to settle. It took me some time for me to come back into myself and for me to trust how my body was feeling, and just to reconnect to it really. And I think it was then when I had some space from work and I had some space to myself and I just had some space to rest that I realized things needed to change. Yeah.
Can so relate to that myself. And what started coming up? What did you feel your body was telling you in that rest? And as you entered this new phase of, okay, me doing things differently.
So the things that I was doing differently was really honoring rest, really making it, in a way I didn't, to start with, I didn't really have much choice. I, my body had just given me such a massive message and it had shut me down. So I didn't actually have much choice. The rest wasn't something that I was doing because it was nice. It was something that I was doing because I had no choice, because I had no energy to do anything else. So I think a big part of me at that stage was really aware that it was so different for me to not be busy. There's a part of me that was really aware that it almost felt redundant. What am I doing? What about my busy holding it all together, managing everything, holding everyone? I really had to let that part step back. I mean, that part was just absolutely exhausted anyway. And in a way, it wasn't difficult at the time because it was the right time, because that part had just gone, I'm done. I have had enough. I'm exhausted. So it felt quite enforced because of my physical health. It was really enforced, the change, which was interesting. And I put taking rest, doing yoga nidra, doing some very gentle movement and spending time in nature, especially in the woods, in greenery, where I could just often just walk very short amount of time and then just sit and be in the countryside, was really, really important part of my recovery journey, actually. Yeah.
Are there any specific messages that you think came at this time for you in terms of, okay, I have been doing life this way and that's not working anymore. And, I want to do it this way moving forward, this other way?
Yeah. I mean, loads of rich insights came through for me during that time. I worked out that I really needed to leave my job. I worked out that I really needed to slow my life down. I needed to start experimenting with saying no. So even when I started to feel more energy and I started to feel better, I didn't want to return to the yes, yes, yes all the time. Planning, planning, doing, doing, busy, busy. I just wanted to retain some of that calm and that spaciousness and the unplanned time, actually. I really wanted to retain the space for spontaneity and the space to just say, hey, I just need a bit of time on my own today. I'm just going to go and have a walk on my own. Yeah. So it was that all of those things were really clear to me. I felt like it was a composting year. I really felt like I'm just going to give my body this time to compost and mulch down to create the really rich, nutrient rich mulch that I need to grow something different, something new, for the new stems and yeah, new growth.
But so much composting. And you had a year, you say, of this composting.
Yeah, pretty much.
And at what point would you say that this composting began to harvest itself and that you started seeing and feeling and sensing change and a new way emerging?
It wasn't that was a very organic and gradual process. So there was a gradual recovery trajectory for me in terms of my health, building up energy. I left my job. That was a very important part because I could then start focusing on myself beyond my professional identity and beyond some of the things that were very challenging at the time. And I would say that there was no switch off, or there's no like immediate, this is when the growth is happening, because there was growth all the time. Under the soil, there was growth, and then there were a few little new shoots. And um, I started some new training and somatic coaching that offered some, as you know, that offered some really nourishing experiences and new skills and new connections with new people. So almost like lots of the different elements that I was bringing into my life, whether it was doing things differently, being with new people, or learning new things, offered me some real, yeah, the richness in the growth.
Yeah, it's funny because we often think of a specific, or we think there are specific moments, right, or specific events in our life that really mark a before and after. And I think sometimes, sure, there are, but often the biggest shifts come from this gradual unfolding that takes time. And that it's really the moment by moment, everyday thing. And that's what it sounds like it was to you.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting. I think around, there often some people around me would say to me, "Are you better now?" And there's almost like this expectation of like, you're either ill or you're better. That there's nothing in between. And it'd be a bit
Exactly.
like, "Oh, you're looking much better. You must be fine." And it's like,
Yeah.
I am much better than I was 6 months ago. However, I'm not feeling that great actually. It's just a spectrum of change, a spectrum of recovery, a spectrum of unfolding. I mean, that's the word that you use, definitely an unfolding. And it wasn't just an unfolding into restoring my physical health and my emotional health back to where it was. It was an unfolding into a new life as well, actually.
Into a new life. Wow, that's amazing. And yeah, I also find it like a bit annoying that are you better now? It's like, life is so cyclical. The whole nature of everything
Mhm.
is so cyclical.
Yeah.
Then yeah, it's not linear at all. And that's just, I think it's kind of difficult for us to grasp because we're so mind based and so linear
Mhm.
and rational and logical as opposed to body based. And now that you feel different and in this new part of the cycle, how is that different from the Eloise that we were speaking about at the beginning?
So I'm much more mindful about how I use my energy. I'm much more mindful about not over planning, and also ensuring that I plan time when I don't plan because I'm such a planner. I'm such a planner. So it's really, and that's how I've always been. So it's really trying to give that planning part of me some validation of like, okay, your planning is helpful, but you don't need to plan, your days full. So the plan is we're doing nothing right now. Um,
The plan is to do not like plan to do
yeah,
nothing.
yeah, absolutely.
And do you actually schedule that? Like, do you literally have that on your schedule? A time that you book and you're like, this is my time to unwind or just
Yeah, absolutely. Over the weekend, my weekends used to be packed with various different plans, and now, I need at least one weekend day that has zero plans. Yeah, so I keep that completely free. Yeah.
differences between the Eloise you see now and the Eloise, the back then Eloise, pre-COVID and pre-burnout?
Yeah, I definitely have. I'm able to consider all the different aspects of what's going on in my life a bit more and work out, okay, what do I need to tend to right now? What are the urgent and important things, and what are the things that can wait? rather than having a sense that I need to do it all now. Guess I've developed more self-compassion, less of the drive to get it all done and make it all perfect. I've definitely developed some more self-compassion and some patience with myself. Yeah, just some more kindness, I think.
If someone's listening right now and they have a similar experience or feel identified, what would be your top tips or the things that you say, this is how you develop that kindness and that self compassion? What do you recommend?
Trusting in yourself, even at times when you don't properly feel that trust. Trusting in the process. So whatever that process might be, trusting that it will unfold in the way that it needs to unfold. I would say ensuring that you have either, some good resources around you that you can anchor into, whether that's people or places or pets, but just to ensure that there's some hope. Um, Because we mirror each other, right? So if you can surround yourself with some compassion from others, you're much more likely to be able to find your own compassion as well. Yeah, and I think, definitely having some laughter, not forgetting the laughter.
How does that show up? Because I know you quit your career, right? It was a corporate career, right?
It was public sector career, but I had a big job with a lot of, yeah, with high level of accountability and responsibility. Yeah, for a large national organization.
That sounds so different to what you're doing now. I mean, in many ways, I suppose there's a lot of overlap, but in many ways, it's so drastically different in pace, in structure, and everything. How does that feel different? And how is that part of your life nourishing you rather than depleting you?
Yeah, it is so different. So I made a decision that I didn't want to um, go and get another job with another organization. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to create a business and work independently, which was a massive leap. I didn't have any experience in working independently when I decided to do it, but I knew that I had a lot of skills. I knew that I could bring a lot of the knowledge and skills and also some great people in my network who were also making that move to work independently. So, it's about building your own teams really and, connecting with people that you can support each other. But it felt and it continues to feel really different. So there are parts of it that I absolutely love and I feel massively grateful for. The variety and the learning, the change of pace, the choice, and then there are parts of it that I miss. I had been employed, in by organizations for, over 30 years in, various different roles. 30, yeah, probably way more than that. So it was a real culture change to come out of an organization and to be my own boss and to not have, an IT department to be able to call when I needed to or an HR, a marketing department. So there were a lot of anchors that I had sort of taken for granted by being employed in an organization that I then didn't have. And that what I've done is I've had to establish my own anchors within my own business and my own work now to to create, I think, that sense of embodied safety and security, a sense of, inner trust and inner confidence. Yes, a lot. I really think a lot of my learning comes back to self-trust, inner trust.
And because when I hear that, my question is, what are your practices and to make sure that you are not in creating these anchors, not replicating the past in a way? Because I so feel this as a coach now, and I also have a corporate background, and it's sometimes so easy to just slip right back into how I used to do things. In the corporate world where it's just so heavy in a sense, like so pushed and rushed, and the energy is like has to happen now. And when I applied that, I found in my business, in my coaching business, it's really it doesn't work. It really like depletes me, and it feels that gets me stuck. So how do you balance that yourself?
So, absolutely. I mean, that's such a pertinent point that you make. And I think for me, it's an ongoing learning process. It's an ongoing practice because I think the social conditioning, not just of having been employed in organizations for my whole career, but also social conditioning of, that we have been surrounded by in the society that we live in. The high productivity is really valued, status is really valued, money is really valued. I think the social conditioning is so powerful that it is being busy is quite deep rooted. And it's a practice. It's a regular practice that I come back to again and again. And it's a regular remembering that my body helps me remember that I can slow down. My body helps me remember that I can trust myself. My body helps me remember that I can make decisions in my own time. And when I feel like I am either on a bit of a treadmill or I'm, juggling loads of things and working really fast, and I catch myself and I just have to take myself out into the countryside. I have to have a walk and just have that space, really. Just decompress and yeah, just have the space to be able to listen in.
Love that you said your body just reminds you. And it's so clear that you also have the medicine, the countryside. And yeah, this sense of the body, your body reminds you. It's almost like you cannot go back, right? Now that you know at such a deep, visceral
Yeah.
level, you just can't go back to that
And I notice
previous.
it. I notice it if I am very back to back and juggling lots of different things. I notice it in my body. I notice it in my mood. And yeah, so it's not really a negotiable. I sort of have to tend to,
Yeah.
yeah, my inner system now.
How does your current career look like now?
So I see myself at the moment as I'm scattering seeds. I've really stepped into this part of my life with an experimental attitude. I sort of made the decision when I left my job. I said to myself, let's just see what happens. Let's do some new stuff and see what happens. So yeah, I'm just scattering seeds, seeing what grows, seeing what plants I want to water and tend to and nurture, maybe some that I don't want to, and they can, do their own thing. So now I'm doing lots of different things. So I'm coaching one-to-one clients using somatic body-oriented coaching, and also I'm doing consultancy work in organizations, supporting public sector organizations in, for example, trauma-informed practice and practice improvement. And I'm bringing some of the nervous system and neuroscience work into that as well. I am an independent social worker, so I support social work students I assess and educate them. So I'm doing lots of different things and blending my new learnings and my somatic skills with sort of the core of me, which is my relationship based practice, all informed by my social work values. And actually, my social work values they're my personal values. They're not separate to both my professional and personal values are intertwined. So my social work values are just a part of me. And that's what's really important for me is to be aligned with those values in everything that I do. So supporting social justice leaders and practitioners to strengthen their capacity and their systems to be present to the really demanding and complex work that they're doing is my main focus. And I'm just doing that in various different ways at the moment.
So, so beautiful. It's so interesting. And it's a very like full circle kind of a thing because also in the public sector again, but in an entirely different capacity. And I find that fascinating. Like it must be so interesting to see it from this whole new you, the whole set of eyes that you now have.
Yeah, and it's really interesting talking to lots of people in the public sector about the impact of, well, stress, working with trauma, bearing witness to the impact of oppressive systems, collective trauma, intergenerational trauma, and how this impacts on the people who are supporting people who are marginalized and traumatized in their work and how the body feels it way before we can think ourselves into what's going on. So when I'm working with various organizations or teams or people about for example, complex decision making. So when people are working with a very high risk or very, a number of different multiple factors and they're having to make very complex decisions, often under pressure and, with a real time pressure as well, bringing in some body-based awareness and some nervous system information, it has been really, really helpful. So it's sort of opening new perspectives and opening new ways of looking at work that we've been doing for ages.
That's incredible because, I mean, I know my background in CSR, corporate social responsibility. Sometimes I did have this sensation of how can I be so tired and burned out myself and help others?
Mhm.
It was so counterintuitive and like made no sense. And that's what I'm thinking about as I hear you speak. And I would have loved, and I think a lot of people would love having someone, like you go into their workspace and actually help them and teach them about the nervous system and how the work you're going to do is so important and it's so much more impactful when it comes from a regulated
Yeah,
place.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't think, yeah, because like, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You can't, if you're supporting others and supporting others at times of need and at times of real challenge or trauma, we need to be in a place that is well resourced. We need to be, sometimes we might not constantly be regulated because anger or upset is a natural human emotion to some of the awful, horrendous things we see or hear or, witness. Yet, if we can support our own nervous systems, we are able to regulate ourselves and not get stuck in, either a fight or flight state or, a collapse state. So it's really about, yeah, tending to our own inner systems so that we can then have greater impact in the outer systems. Yeah.
Love that so much. The inner system comes first. The word regulating, I don't even use it much in my work because I think it's more about flexibility, right? And
Yeah,
increasing capacity
absolutely.
and living in an always calm state. That feels very,
Yeah,
yeah, no, no.
absolutely. And that's another, in a way, another aspect of social conditioning, this expectation, or maybe this drive to let's be calm all the time. Sort of like, no, that's not what life is about. We're not
Exactly.
supposed to be calm
I'm
all the
pissed.
time.
Yeah.
That would just be quite unusual. We do have energy peaks and troughs, and also having reactions and emotions about either the amazing, brilliant things we experience or the horrendous things that we experience is a normal part of our, yeah, response system and has to be honored. So I think that about being witness, because if
Yeah.
people are us, others are not witnessed, if we are not witnessed and if we cannot bear witness to the impact of oppressive systems or trauma, then that is where the isolation and the shame and the loneliness and, and the burnout exists.
Okay, this is a really big cue, I know, but I'm just really curious to hear in your words, in your perspective, what do you think you that you have been through that journey of being like very deep inside the system, let's say, and now on the outside helping that same system increase that flexibility? What do you think is the most needed or the change that would be most helpful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's most needed are compassionate relationships. And in order to have compassionate relationships, so compassionate relationships involves spaces of trust. And in order to have those compassionate relationships, they might not always be easy, but there's compassion there. The conditions need to be in place. There needs to be open communication. There needs to be respect. There needs to be mutual understanding that maybe, there are differing perspectives, and let's welcome in the diversity of perspectives. We may not all think the same, and that is okay. Let's welcome in that diversity. We can try and change systems with the mechanical aspects of it. Yet if the people who are the players within the system, the people, and they don't have the trusting relationships with each other, then the mechanical system won't be able to serve them.
And on a personal level, Eloise, what feels healthier, happier, or more like yourself now that you're on the other side of this journey?
spaciousness in my life. So yeah, the pace that I live my life feels much healthier. I just think much more about what I eat, what I drink, how I move my body. So yeah, that definitely feels much healthier and I feel happier for that. And being unstuck, having a sense of something new. So, the newness of being, out of being employed by an organization, the newness of running my own business and meeting new people and learning new things, it feels exciting. Yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, the word flow comes to me when you said be unstuck. If
Yeah.
you were to describe in just one word or a couple of words, who were you before and who are you now?
I was busy, I was full, I was stressed, and now I am spacious and mindful.
This period of your life had a title, what would it be?
So yeah, you asked me this question and I've had to think about this. So it would be the unbecoming, shedding what no longer serves. So I was thinking about this. It was actually, yeah, and really interesting exercise for me to think about, what would the title be to capture so many of the different layers. But the unbecoming really is something about stepping back from the norm and from everything that I'd known, really trying to step out of the grips of the social conditioning that I have experienced my whole life, and dismantling what I thought I should be, and
Mhm.
stepping into who I feel I want to be. Yeah, and part of that has been about listening to my body and really being respectful and compassionate to my body.
That is so beautiful, Eloise. Thank you so much. I would love to invite you to grab whatever you're drinking and to celebrate. Let's celebrate you and every courageous choice and decision that led you here.
Oh, thanks, Maho. Yeah.
Cheers to how good it got for you.
Cheers. Thanks, Maho.
Any last words? Anything else you would like to share with anyone listening?
Just thanking you for having this conversation with me. I think it's felt really nourishing and open, and hearing each other's stories and sharing our stories is a part of being witnessed. And it has just reminded me how important it is. So, yeah, I feel really grateful for that. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing and for being here and co-creating this with me. It has been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to tell me how good it got. Stay tuned for the next one because, yes, it really does get good. Before we wrap, a quick note. Eloise has shared a couple of aligned resources she wanted to offer you. The first is her Somatic Connection series, a free series of 5 recorded practices delivered over 10 days, designed to support connection and wholeness, especially in times of fragmentation. And the second is The Embodied Leader, a 4-month small group program for leaders working in social or collective change, focused on staying present, resourced, and connected to inner power in complex environments. You'll find links to both resources in the show notes. Again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.